this is Patty Sliney, Head Quilter National Educator. And we had a great question come up on one of our Facebook groups on our social media about how you would go about cropping out a section of your quilt top, whether it's a block or an applique or an embroidery design that you don't want to stitch your all over edge to edge over, but the area that you need to crop out kind of covers two different throat spaces. So I wanted to show you in simulation how you would go about doing that. So I'm going to ask you to put your imagination cap on just a little bit. So I've tried to create a few things here to give you a better visual idea. And I have this all over edge to edge design here on my quilt. I've created a quilting space so you can see what my machine's throat space is and what I could stitch out in the throat space, and wanted to show you where I was. Now I have moved the bullseye start point. Know that that does not happen if you're stitching an all over edge to edge. If you are stitching an all over edge to edge, that bullseye start point is going to live at stitch number 1 unless you manually move it yourself. For example, you've got a thread break or bobbin run out, you need to set a new start point, then the bullseye start point changes to wherever you set it. But if you don't, and you're just stitching merrily along, it lives up here. It doesn't move down from row to row to row. I just want to make sure you know that. So as you advance, this still stays at stitch 1 unless you manually put it somewhere else. But for my example, I just want to show you that I'm here. I have stitched out this partial row 1. I've stitched out all of row 2. Okay, now I'm on row 3. And if you look real closely, you can see a faint square back there. I just created a little design and deselected it. So it's kind of sitting in the background to represent this block that I don't want my edge to edge design to stitch out into. And as you can see, it straddles two throat spaces because the quilting space shows this is as far down as I can stitch. I can still stitch all of row number 3. It's safely within my quilting space, so I know I'm not going to hit my front bar. But this block extends down into row 4. So what do I do? How do I crop this all out? So I'm going to zoom in a little bit and I'm going to show you how I do it so you can see. Okay. So this is the section I definitely need to crop out. And the way that I do it is I will go ahead and clear my original area. And you can see I've baselined, so I can clear the area. It's not going to affect my all over edge to edge design. So let's clear that. Because now I need to create my area for cropping. So what I will do, if I can reach down below my bar, and sometimes I can't, all I need to do is just get below row 1. Okay, I need to be completely below row 1. Now I have some options here. I've got a bit of a space here, you can see, between my rows, row 3 and row 4. So I could create my area to kind of run through, but I need to capture this point. Oh, and I'm not going to be able to do that. But I do want to create it down into row 4. And I'll explain why. So let's go ahead and move my crosshairs, and I'm going to I'd probably do a multi-point. And for expediency's sake, okay, now I want to make sure I capture all of this because I want this whole section here to be cropped out. Now, if I can get below the quilting space, I will. If not, I need to be at least below this lowest point. Okay, so let's say I can't. Let's say that's as good as I can get. I can get right to the bottom of my quilting space, bottom edge. That's still not a problem because I am below the bottom edge of row 3. That's the key. Okay. Alrighty. Again, if I could have gotten below, I would have. The key is to capture all of this, and I'll show you why. So now I've created this area. I'm going to move my crosshairs off so you can see it. Then we're going to go to modify, crop, and we want to crop away everything that's inside the area. So I'm going to click inside, and then I'm going to close my edges, because with this design, I know there's not a lot of overstitching. I can put this into air stitching by turning my stitch button off if I want, and stitch this out just to double check. And then if I'm good, I can cancel and then move my start point back down, which is what I'm going to do. I'm going to baseline my change here, which move my start point back up there. You can see it pops back up to row 1. No problem. Let's just go move it back down. So I've gone to Pro Stitcher, New Start End, and under the Start column, I use the very bottom down jump arrow to jump it down to the row that I need to start stitching out. Okay, so I want to show you why you want to do that, because I'm going to, since I baseline, I can clear this little area. Nothing's going to happen, because it's going to show you how it's going to stitch out. Yes, this got chopped off. I don't care. I'm not stitching out. I'm only stitching row 3 out right now. Okay, still with me? So it's going to stitch out around this area. So if I go to run, we'll let it run, and it's going to show you how it's going to stitch. And it's going to stitch out. This design in and of itself has some overstitching. It's doing the tie-ups right now. You can see now it's my pause delay, and I'm going to resume. And so you can see it already has some overstitching right there. That's just part of the design. But there's not going to be a ton of overstitching in this cropping. A little bit right there. Okay, so you can see that this is going to allow me, and this is the normal overstitching in this design. Okay, so this allowed me to crop the top part out. Okay, so I'm going to pause and cancel, and then I'm going to zoom out a wee bit. If it'll let me zoom out. Let's zoom out. There we go. Okay, so again, I want you to put your imagination caps on. I've stitched out row 3, and so now I'm ready to stitch out. I'm going to have to advance. I'm not going to do the advance here. I'm just going to show you how to deal with the cropping of row 4. Here's how I do it. I just undo, undo, undo. So I'm undoing, and if you look here, you'll see what I'm undoing. Undo. That was my closed edges. Now that was the inside crop, and the area gets undone. All gone. Okay, no problem. So now I'm going to be stitching this row out, and I need to crop this out. So what I need to do is I need to make sure that I can reach, well, actually, I am going to do a little, well, if I do drag and drop, it's not going to take my box with me. So when you drag and drop in advance, you always want to make sure that you can reach the bottom part of the row that you have previously stitched out. Obviously, you want to get all of row 4 within your quilting space. That's a given. Otherwise, you won't be able to stitch it. But you still want to be able to reach with your needle the bottom edge of the row you just stitched out, which is row 3. And you want to do that for positioning and alignment checks. So you'll still be able to get up into row 3, and that's critical for this next cropping step. And here's why. Now I need to crop this section out, and I'm going to try to, let me zoom in a little bit so you can see better. Okay, so I'm going to need to crop this bit out of row 4. Okay, and I am going to create my area up into row 3, and I'll show you why. I want to capture part of what I've stitched out in row 3. So I'm going to go up here and you can see where my crosshairs are. They're up into row 3. So I'm going to go to my area, set my multi-point, and I'm following that little box I have in the back that represents my block. I don't need to go up here. This is already stitched out and this was all cropped away. I go back down here to the bottom of my block. Okay, now here's why you want to start your area up into row 3. So now I'm going to go to modify crop. Let's see, limit baseline first, just so nothing weird happens. Inside, close my edges. I'm going to baseline, but that's going to move my start point back to row 1. No problem. I need it here because this is row 4. So I go to Pro Stitcher, do start end, start column, bottom down arrow in the jumps box and jump it down to row 4. Okay, this is what I want to stitch. I'm going to move my crosshairs away and then I want to show you, and this dashed line, don't worry, this is just our jump line. It's not a stitching line because it's dashed. We know that means jump. So now I'm going to go ahead and clear my area so you can see the only straight line is going to happen down here, not up here, because I cropped all the way up here. So it is going to just stitch this and then down here. So let's see how that looks. Pro Stitcher, quilt, run. Okay, it's going to do my tie-offs. Stitch my tie-off stitches, or that was my pull-up rather. Now it's stitching my tie-off stitches. You can do another pull-up here, trim the threads, and away I go. And so now it's going to stitch out this section. And the only straight line we're going to get is at the bottom of that block, which is what we wanted. Okay. So that prevents a straight line from being stitched weirdly across the top where you don't want it to be stitched out. So now all of this block is it's all cropped out. This, remember, this section was cropped out first and now we've cropped the bottom. So I hope that makes sense. That's how you crop a block that extends across 2 throat spaces. I encourage you to practice this in Simuation on your laptop so you understand the concept. And that way, when you go to your machine, it will make sense and you will get the outcome that you expect and want. So happy quilting!